Hi, my name is Adama Delphine Fawundu, and I'm recording from Crown Heights, Brooklyn, New York. The wonderful thing about recording from this location is that this is where I was born and raised. My parents migrated to Brooklyn, New York from Sierra Leone, West Africa, back in the 70s, and I was their firstborn in the United States. So my whole history, my whole understanding of being really started in Brooklyn. So it's very special to me. The thing about living in Brooklyn, New York, and even just living in Crown Heights and in my neighborhood is that this is also where I first picked up my camera. And one of the first things I started doing as a photographer was documenting my neighborhood. So it was very important for me to photograph the storefronts, photograph the people and the surroundings and just everyday life in my community. It means so much more years and years later. I'm actually 48 years old now. So imagine I was only in my 20s when I started, actually around 19 when I started. And to think about 20 years of photographing the same community over and over, you have a historical record. So, for those of you who live in a place, sometimes we take for granted what it means to just take a simple photograph of what something is today. Because years and years later, it becomes a really valuable part of history. Because right now, if people wanted to know where I live, like what it looked like 20 years ago, I have the history right in my archive, which is a beautiful thing. And there's so much more that could come from that. So I'm happy to be a native New Yorker, Brooklyn, New York, and also to have this beautiful hybrid of being West African and American at the same time. I am here to share with you my project, No Wahala, It's All Good, a spiritual cipher within the hip hop diaspora. This project really bridges together hip hop culture in America with hip hop culture within different parts of Africa. So, to make this project, I actually used my archive of hip hop photography back in the 90s, all the way between the 90s, all the way up until the 2000s, and merged that with my travels to West Africa, where I started in Ghana and then traveled to Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Mali, Senegal, South Africa, to all of these different countries in order to create this whole conversation between Africans on the continent and in the diaspora, using hip hop culture as this bridge. So in 2008, I went to Ghana to investigate this whole idea of what is hip hop culture, or really just learn about what hip hop culture and what urban youth culture looked like in Accra, one of the biggest cities in Ghana. And so I was so excited to be there. And the beautiful thing about it is that it reminded me of hip hop culture, like my documentation of hip hop culture in the 90s. The reason being is because everywhere that you look, like there were these young people doing this creative work, and they all wanted to be original. And that was really the similarity. The other similarity is that so many young people were becoming entrepreneurs because of this music. So you had young people as journalists, as writers, as videographers, and music video directors, and fashion and stylists, makeup artists. All of these people that were and young people supporting the industry, and the creative energy was the most exciting thing. So for me as a photographer, that's what I was interested in capturing, because it's not really about, you can't record the music with photography, but you can record the energy. And that's what I was interested in, that creative energy, which I think is present in all of the photographs, whether they're black and white or color. You could see, you could feel it. You could feel the energy of all of that creativity and positivity that was happening at that time. Being in Accra, what it did, it led me to the different parts of Africa to document this music. Well, while I was in Accra, they kept saying, if you're really interested in doing this, you need to go to Nigeria. And so I ended up going to Lagos, Nigeria, which is huge. And it was almost like twice the size. Being in Lagos was like being in twice the size of Accra. So this big place, all of these different things are happening. It was so exciting. I mean, I ever since going to Lagos in 2010, I've been going back almost every single year, like twice a year, for many different reasons. But Lagos became the city that I fell in love with. And I continue to go, and I built relationships with many of the artists and creative people. I've made friends, but it's such a vibrant and beautiful city to be in. And so after going to Lagos, I ended up going to Senegal and to Mali, to Freetown, where I'm from, to South Africa, to Kenya, all of these different places. And the beautiful similarity was the energy of creativity. And that to me is really powerful. What photography can do is for yourself, for the artist, it can reveal to you what you're really interested in. So even though I thought, okay, I'm going out and I'm photographing, I'm documenting this music, what I really saw, because I didn't know that I was interested so much in connecting my photographs on the continent with the photographs in Brooklyn and in New York. But after looking at them all together, that's how No Wahala, It's All Good came about, because those energies were similar. And that was revealed to me through photography. You know, these are things that I learned years and years later after spending so many years. Because if you look at the whole project, starting in 93 and really ending in like around, and I won't say I never give a project an end, but most of the photos I finished taking in 2018. And so looking at that wide range of time, the photos are telling me stories. It's telling me what I'm interested in. From the quiet moments of someone in the studio reflecting on their music and their practice, to a fan yelling into the camera, to dancers, you know, doing all of their moves. All of that is what I was interested in. But it's interesting, like how this cipher now is happening around the world. And, you know, that to me, that's really exciting. So I remember when I was given the assignment to photograph Mobb Deep. They lived in Queensbridge Projects, which was really exciting for me, because one of the things I loved about hip hop culture is that at that time, it was these people talking about where they were from. They were storytellers, giving us insight to their hood, their neighborhood. What was it like to be in Queensbridge versus Houston, Texas, you know, versus Los Angeles, you know what I mean? And I think that is like the rich beauty of the culture. So to be able to go to Queensbridge and photograph them where they were from was really exciting to me, especially because Queensbridge is like one of the birthplaces of hip hop. You know, I know they say the South Bronx, but Queensbridge Projects in particular is very relevant when you think about MC Shan and Marley Marl and Roxanne Shante, all of these people that came from the same place that was making amazing music at the same time. So they came outside. I mean, we started the photo shoot from the doorway, went up to the rooftop, went outside. And for me, it was really, I wanted to get the process of what it meant to live there and also what it meant to be around the community. So there wasn't too much posing. I just really wanted to get a feel of what I felt when you listen to these songs. As I listen to the music today and I look at the photographs that I took of them, I could see that, I could feel the vibrations. It makes perfect sense, you know? That was really exciting to me as a young hip hop photographer. It was a young photographer documenting hip hop back in those days. And to go to a place like Lagos, Nigeria, or to go to Accra, Ghana, or South Africa, and then also be, you know, share time with these artists and do the same thing, photograph them in their communities, in the studio, in the settings that feel comfortable to them. It's the energy that you get. And that to me is exciting. One of the most important things that happened to me in this series of being in just documenting this music culture in West Africa is, I told you I was in Ghana in 2008. I went back to Ghana in around 2014. And I showed some people the photographs, and someone said to me, "You managed to really document our history. This is so important." That meant everything to me. Because to be honest, in 2008, when I was making those photographs, I thought that I was just doing this thing. I didn't realize I would be traveling all over. I thought this was one small project that I was working on. And it didn't dawn upon me until later that I was really, really, really documenting moments of history that mean so much to me, but really so much to the people involved, you know? And that's a really important thing. So I would say that for those of you who are in different spaces, sometimes you think that what you're doing, even if you're photographing yourself in your home or you're photographing your friends, you may not think that these moments are important, But I'm telling you, they are so important, and they're important today, but they're even more important as a historical record. So think of it like that. Every time you record something, you're making a historical record. And if you know much about the history of photography, you'll know that it's double sided. On one end, photography, yes, is this beautiful historical document, but there's a danger to photography as well, particularly for people of color and women. Photography has been used to create stereotypes and negative imagery of us. So it's so important. And those images still exist. So it's very important as image makers, if you care about that and if you care about balancing out the historical record so that when people look at it later, you could say, I was here. We have to put those images in the world. We have to. It's like our responsibility to say, we were here. This is what we had to say. This is what we looked like. This is how we felt. And, this is who we are. And that's one of the main reasons why I am a photographer and a storyteller, because I feel that so many different stories are important. I want to make sure that the stories that I believe in that represent not just myself, but a huge collective around the world, that those stories are told. A common question that I get asked by especially young people is, what keeps you inspired? And not even just young people, but people ask me regularly, how do you stay inspired? And the interesting thing is that even though I am a photographer and I'm an artist and I make things, I'm usually inspired by life. I'm inspired by history. I'm inspired by the things that are going on around me. I particularly love to listen to music. And believe it or not, just listening to music can inspire me to create work. And works that's not even related to music. But just sometimes if I'm listening to people who know how to write songs, or like they're composing something in a unique kind of way, it sparks different ideas. So I say also, if I'm reading books, I love to read historical fiction. I love to read history books. And when I'm reading these books, I'm inspired. Different ideas are coming to my mind. And so I say, listen to the ideas that are in your mind and don't be afraid to take chances and create them. Don't judge the projects that you can make until they're in the world. When they're in the world, you can decide what you want to show and what you don't want to show, but never get rid of them. What you place into the world is your perspective. The beautiful thing about photography is that you have the ability to document how you see a particular thing. If right now I am the subject matter and we had 5 photographers around me, each one is going to photograph me in a different way. And the way that they saw me or whatever it is that they're seeing is their point of view. And so the ability to really document your point of view and say, this is how I see the world. And as long as you're being pure and honest with yourself and you're not trying to harm anyone else, I think it's the most beautiful and powerful thing. So never take your point of view for granted. Never take your point of view for granted, because your point of view is extremely important. And your point of view does not have to be someone else's, right? It's yours. This is how you see the world. And then after a while, it just becomes like, how do I communicate these ideas? Do I continue to tell these stories? And the way that you do it is to keep on photographing. Keep on photographing. Because as I mentioned before, sometimes you're working on a small project and then you're done with it. But then you realize that this small project may mean something bigger as you look at your whole series. What have I been photographing for the past year? It will tell you. Photography will tell you what you're interested in. And that's beautiful. It will reveal what's going on in your subconscious. So even if you're just walking around your neighborhood and photographing things, sometimes you don't know exactly what it is that you're interested in. But pay attention to your photographs. And I challenge you, go and look at just the random photographs that you've been taking. You're going to see after a while what it is that you're interested in. During this quarantine, it's so difficult for us sometimes to focus. I know it's been hard for me to focus because I'm thinking about so many different things. But at certain points, the creativity comes. And when it comes, I go with it. So one of the things I've been doing is just photographing my immediate surroundings. And again, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, because I know that this this commitment is already sealed. I already sealed the deal with my commitment to photography and storytelling. So I know I will be able to do something with it maybe next week, maybe next month, maybe next year. But it's important for me to do this thing, for me to document, for me to release my shutter, for me to look at different things and really observe what's going around me and pay attention to how I'm seeing it. So on my occasional walks, because I have been practicing social distancing to the max, but when I do go and get food and do the essential things that I need to do, I always walk with my camera. And because I feel like it's really, really important for us to do. If you're inside, it's really interesting. Something that we really take for granted is our homes. And the way that we place ourselves in our homes, there's so many different ways to photograph that. And that's another thing that I could challenge you to do as even over the summer, as a summer assignment. What is it that's different about your homes? What are the things that you are even not, you think, I don't want to share that, but maybe there's a beauty in that. And how do we figure out how it may be kind of cool and distinct to share those little things that are just unique to you? Well, thank you for listening to my story. I am so excited for all of us to make new work in the world, whether we're using our big digital cameras, analog, our cell phones. Let's really think about how do we, document these moments that are happening around us today. This is a historical time. It's not the best for us because who wants to be in this situation? But this is something that people will be talking about for a very long time. And to have some type of record of what's going on now is going to be really important as we move into this future. And even what I challenge you all to do is think about what is it that you want to see in the world. Photography is a beautiful way to create what you want to see in the world. As I said, when I was documenting hip hop culture and youth culture in Africa, I had never seen those images in the world. So I said, I'm going to put those, I'm going to make it, I'm going to put it in the world, and it's going to be here and it's going to exist. And people's view of how they see these cities and these countries in Africa is going to change because I'm putting these images out there. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all the best. Peace out from Adama, Delphine, Fawundu. Brooklyn is in the house.